Welcome to r/MaliciousCompliance, where we share stories of people conforming to the letter, but not the spirit of a request. And today we have 3 great stories, so subscribe, hit the like button, and let's begin. The first story: mistreated employee outsmarts their boss by exposing a hidden remote training option, leading to a victorious resignation. The second story: security guards' enforcement of road rules sparks a chain of events leading to a surprising job loss and the loss of $10,000 of the company. The third story: sales agent's decision to start production without the required letter of credit leads to unexpected consequences. On to the first story. Oh, I can quit? Not without the final say I can't. At my last job, my boss, let's call her Kay, hated me. She turned everything into a competition. She mocked me publicly. She took credit for my work. She divulged my personal medical information in front of all of our coworkers. She was cruel, and needless to say, I avoided her as much as I could. So now that the stage is set, here's the context. End of 2020, coronavirus blazing, I had just had my first baby. I was a nervous wreck my entire pregnancy, working from home and being extra careful. After maternity leave, which was disgustingly short by the way, I had returned to the office with some precautions set in place. My boss became crueler to me over those first few weeks back, and suddenly announced that regardless of any negative feelings towards it, she had decided we all had to attend this training in another state. Keep in mind that there were mandatory 2-week at-home quarantines in place for anyone coming back to my state, but my boss fully planned on ignoring those quarantines and demanding we all would return to the office as soon as we got back. I was carrying a heavy workload and pulling a lot of the weight around the office, and I had some rank, so I felt fully comfortable expressing my deep concerns to Kay, telling her that it was peak COVID season and that I had a newborn to worry about now. I expressed I simply didn't feel comfortable going in the middle of a global pandemic and asked if there was a remote training I could attend instead. She firmly, adamantly insisted there was no remote training and informed me that I could quit if I was that upset with her decisions. It's important to note that she insisted this for weeks, even claiming to have contacted the training organization to make sure. I decided on the spot after that meeting that I would be quitting. But I needed to check my boxes first, which took me a few weeks to figure out. Sometime after this meeting, and her incessant insistence that there was no remote training, it finally occurred to me to check with the organization putting on the training, and ask them to clarify if there truly was a remote training or not. I did, and lo and behold, there was, and they had been offering it for months. I asked them to email this information to me. Now to figure out how to use this valuable information, right? Wrong. As soon as I step back into the office, Kay starts fake empathizing with me out of nowhere, in front of all of our coworkers, saying she really wished she didn't need to force me to go to this training. So I said, if you feel so bad, let me go to the remote training. She looked at me in surprise, and her face turned beet red. Before she could fight me, I pulled up the email with the information and read it aloud in front of all of our coworkers. No one said anything. They just stared, wide-eyed at her while she blubbered like a fool. Long story short, after pulling that fast one on her, I pulled her into a private meeting and gave my notice. She was horrified because, as I stated prior, I carried a lot of the work around the office. But like she said, I could quit if I didn't like her decisions. ETA for privacy reasons. I can't go into why I didn't rat her out, or why she was intent on going out of state, but I do believe I know the reasons why. To be fair, that was one of the first things she did, so it caught me off guard. I could have tried to report it, I guess, but I don't think it would have gone anywhere. There was no hard and fast proof, unless people were willing to rat her out. The next story is: don't want to follow the rules of the long haul road? Sure, go right on through. For context, I, 27 female, work for a small local security company. We mainly do oil and gas and logging roads. I typically work pipeline security, but I'm between sites at the moment waiting for spring breakup, when the ground starts to thaw and heavy equipment and trucks can't operate because this is swampland. Before breakup, they've got a 24/7 log haul happening on one of the big logging roads in our area. Now because of this, traffic going against the log trucks is being restricted by us. I sit down at the far end of the log road and control who can go through the wrong way. This is limited to 3 companies and their subcontractors because their sites are close to my end of the road, and they don't interfere with log trucks. Any company that's in violation of this rule receives a $10,000 fine, and their road use privileges are affected. In this case, they can still only travel one way on the road once breakup hits, and the log haul has to stop until the logging company says otherwise. One company in particular has been one massive pain this whole time. Let's call them Stupid Inc. for privacy reasons. Now, Stupid Inc.'s site sits about halfway down the log road. They have to go down to the far end of the road and drive the same direction as the log trucks. Well, they don't bother telling their subcontractors this, so all day every day I'm busy turning these guys away. One morning last week, this big pickup truck pulls up, and I asked the usual of where he headed. He gave me the kilometer number of where the site is. It's Stupid Inc. Only he gives me a different company name, a subcontractor. We'll call that one P Company. I informed the guy that he couldn't go this way, and he lost it. Starts cursing and swearing, yelling about how it's complete BS and I shouldn't be allowed to do this. He tells me he's gone this way down the road plenty of times when he's not working and it's never been an issue. The thing is that private users, so just regular people, are technically allowed. Legally speaking, we can't stop them, as roads are public to a degree. There's a whole thing that I'm not going to get into. Private users are allowed to use the road, though we strongly caution against it. Alright then, I'm a private user and you can't stop me. You just told me that you're here for work, but alright if you say so, you've been warned. And he floors it on down the road. What followed was a 4-day manhunt. I immediately notified the road patrol supervisor, as well as road patrol and my boss. I was asked questions for 4 days while they tried to identify this guy, because he said he was going to work for Stupid Inc. They got hit with the fine. Of course, this didn't go over well with them either. Next thing I know, the site superintendent is asking me tons of questions about the guy. When I said he worked for P Company, well, that didn't go over well. From my understanding, P Company was at risk of losing the contract they had with Stupid Inc. over this. P Company then started digging around, and I heard they found out who it was, and the guy lost his job over it. The kicker? He wasn't even working for Stupid Inc. that day. The superintendent told me they didn't have P Company out working on anything. One of his employees had seen the truck I described way on the other side of Stupid Inc.'s site. He hadn't even stopped there. As far as anyone knows, he actually was there as a private user. And had he just said as much, none of this would have happened. Edit. Alright, apparently I need to clear up a couple of things. It's not like the guy said, yeah, I work for this company, but I'm off today. I get that a lot actually and never have an issue with it. The guy specifically told me he worked for P Company and was working down at Kilometer X, which was the location for Stupid Inc. I asked him to confirm the company he was headed to work for, and he specifically named Stupid Inc. I told him that company and their subcontractors were not allowed to go that way, and he started yelling and swearing at me. During his hissy fit, he said he's been down that road several times when not working. I told him that private users, so individuals not there on behalf of a company, legally can't be stopped. It's a legal gray area. Yes, it's stupid, but private user equals not there representing a company equals can go. Employee/subcontractor equals there to do work on behalf of a company equals cannot go. After explaining this, he got all smug and looking and declared he was a private user. He thought he'd found a loophole. It wasn't like he said, well, I'm actually not here for work today, I just do work for this company. Instead, he was a straight-up a-hole about the entire situation, and very clearly lied to my face about being a private user. Again, I don't know why he was truly there. I never found out. All I know is he lied to my face, gave me trouble, which is another finable offense actually, but that's a whole other thing, and thought he'd found a loophole. The way the situation itself played out, I guarantee based on the information given to me by him that I was not confused on the matter. Also, when I say 4-day manhunt, what I meant is that it took 4 days for the various companies to figure out exactly who this guy was, as he didn't give me a name, and it's an incredibly common truck description. He didn't vanish into the woods never to be seen again. Apologies for any confusion there. I was never hoping the guy would lose his job. Honestly, I wanted him to get chewed out as a nice bit of karma. This dude was nasty. Very colorful language, and at 6:10 a.m. I was so not in the mood it screamed at me. I knew about the fine, which is why I said you've been warned prior to him taking off. I knew that things were going to be ugly for him when the boss got their hands on him. I did not hope or really expect he would lose his job. I can't deny that I do feel a tiny sliver of satisfaction, because guys like this need to be taken down several pegs. But I do also feel bad that it cost him his job. I believe this would be a case of FAFO, and I sincerely hope he's learned something from this and will be nicer to people just doing their jobs in the future. The last story is, want to start production without the letter of credit? This story goes back to the mid-1990s when I was working for a company that made small metering pumps used in the manufacture of many products. The biggest market was in the spinning of synthetic fiber, an industry that literally touches all of us, except nudists and cotton-only folks every day. In broad terms, the fiber material starts out as a liquid solution: rayon, viscous fiber, acrylics, or a molten polymer: polyester, nylon, polypropylene, etc. The pumps push the fluid through a spinneret at a very precise flow rate, creating the filament that's made into the fiber. At that time, an average plant would have 75 of the pumps in service. A really big plant would have as many as 1,100. One plant that made cigarette filter material had a couple of thousand running at any given time. I was working in the international group when I got a fax. Mid-90s, remember? From our commissioned agent Joseph in India. He wanted me to call him at home to discuss something. He had a customer that was willing to buy 340 pumps for a fiber plant. Joe asked if we could increase his commission from 10% to 15%. It seemed that the end user's purchasing guy wanted to, set up his retirement fund. Corporate policy permitted such things if it was local custom, and if it was signed off by the GM. It was customary and it was approved. In short order, a $640,000 order rolled in. I'm a hero as it's the biggest order of the year, but the order has the caveat from Joe to not start production until the letter of credit was in hand. This was about 30 weeks before the end of the fiscal year. The pumps had a lead time of 16 weeks, so 14 weeks to get to the LC. Piece of cake. Manufacturing and the GM were of course eager to get things going. Shipping the pumps in the current fiscal year would make a pretty good impact on the shipping dollars, and would probably be enough to get the GM into bonus territory. So predictably, the GM is pushing the manufacturing folks to get started. The manufacturing folks were honest like hobos on ham sandwiches looking for permission to start manufacturing. First it was weekly, then about 10 weeks out from the drop-dead start date it went to twice a week, then to daily. We refused to release the order because no LC was in hand. I was chasing Joe a couple of times a week for the LC. He kept getting reassurances that it was coming. On a trip to India, I went with Joe to the customer to see when we could expect the LC. It's coming. Well, okay. So a week before the drop-dead date, no LC. I was in my sales manager Tim's office when the head of manufacturing comes waltzing in looking for the release. Tim looked at him and said, "Our agents say don't start without an LC. We want to trust him, but make them if you want." Production started the next day. These pumps are mostly standard. Mostly. You see, the pumping bits were mounted on a casting that extended down to a foot that fit between two trunnions. The assembly would be pinched between the trunnions and pivoted over onto a gear on a line shaft. The pump had a gear on its drive shaft. It meshed with the line shaft gear and the pump turned. If this seems weird, it's the finest 1928 technology that allows a failed pump to be isolated and hot swapped. The standard angle on that trunnion was 90 degrees, but not these pumps. These were 105 degrees for some reason. So 340 pumps were made with non-standard ports, and if the LC never came, manufacturing is stuck with 340 oddball pumps. And the LC never came. Year-end hits and the pumps are finishing goods in inventory at $640,000. The real problems start when the GM ends up catching hell from the corporate offices in Illinois about the excessive inventory. SH slides downhill, so sales and marketing catches hell too. Joe found out later that the purchasing guy didn't have the authority to buy $500,000 in pumps. He was just trying to line his pockets. Shocking, right? Where's the malicious compliance? You want us to release the order? We'll release the order. Don't blame us if it goes sideways. Addendum. 4 months later, I managed to find another company in another country to buy the pumps, complete with the weird 105-degree trunnion mount. Did I get any credit for that? Of course not. I left the company shortly thereafter, being on the outs with my boss for other reasons, and on the outs with manufacturing for letting them make those D pumps. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to subscribe if you want to know when the new video comes out, and hit the like button to support the channel.